So how did it come to pass that these are legal searches that Customs and Border Protection is actually doing? What is the legality of these searches right now?
So in 2014, the Supreme Court ruled that law enforcement cannot conduct warrantless searches of people's cell phones without their consent. But there is what is called the border zone or border search exemption, which is exactly what allows CBP to search your phone at an airport or other port of entry. So in this instance, border doesn't mean like the physical like land borders of the US. Like if you're flying into Chicago on an international flight, like that's a border zone. If you're flying into like, I don't know, Omaha, I'm just picking places in the middle of the country. Like you don't have
Sure.
to be physically at the border for you to be in like a border zone. So the border zone exemption basically means that there are just like areas where the Fourth Amendment, not that it doesn't exist, but it's a little bit more flexible, a little bit less robust, because you're being inspected for entry into the country. So even though you are physically present in the United States, you have not yet been legally admitted. So it's just like a kind of different situation.
So, and is the idea that just by virtue of the fact that you are coming from not in the United States to in the United States, that somehow there is, I don't know, like probable cause or a reason to check, or like, I guess, what is the reason behind that exemption?
So I spoke to a lawyer at the Electronic Frontier Foundation who explained it to me basically as like, there's always kind of been a border exemption. And it's before there were phones, it was they would check your luggage, they would check the things on your person, things that similarly, like what you would need like reasonable suspicion or whatever for search and seizure. But because you are entering, these things are considered like related to your travel, related to your reason for being in the country. But your luggage, they might be looking for you smuggling something, trafficking something, drugs, people, contraband, eggs recently. CBP has had an increase in people smuggling eggs from Mexico, which is really funny.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But your phone is not really like just a thing that you're carrying with you or your laptop. It like contains your entire life on it. Which is why, like domestically, the Supreme Court has held that, law enforcement can't just go through your phone without a warrant. But it's because of this border search exemption, they can do it at ports of entry.
Right. It's exactly the thing you just said about your phone is both the reason it should be more protected and the reason Customs and Border Protection would really, really, really like to look at it. Like
Exactly.
Those two things are exactly in like diametric opposition at all times.
Exactly.
Okay. So what do we know about how these searches actually work? Like I'm imagining just like a dude standing in the corner just like flipping through the apps on your phone. What actually happens in one of these searches?
So it depends, I would say. When you get to the airport and you go through customs and they're like, where were you? What's the reason for your travel? That's just like your standard run-of-the-mill inspection. You can get pulled into what's known as a secondary inspection, which is when they take you into a back room. And this is like they ask you more questions. You're sitting in the room, and so they can ask to look at your phone. If you say yes, there's two types of searches they can do. There's what's known as a basic search. They have to put your phone on airplane mode, and they can look at whatever is on your phone on airplane mode. They can use the search function on your phone. They can go through your pictures. They can go through your texts, like any apps that you have open that like maybe are still cached. Like they can look through all of that with your phone on airplane mode. Then there's what's known as advanced or forensic search, which is when they hook your phone up to an external device and they like grab everything that's on it and they keep it.
Okay.
They keep it for as long as they want. And in some jurisdictions, like they can only do warrantless forensic searches that are pursuant to like border crimes. In some jurisdictions, they can only do searches that are pursuant to other types of crimes. It depends. But mostly they can just look at your phone and take what's on it. And they just store that information forever. Or maybe not forever, but for a very long time. I need to check the laws on that.
Yeah. But even in the basic search, to your point, like I think it strikes me as I think one of the questions a lot of people are going to have, like our caller here is like, okay, what information are they looking for? And I think to the question of like, okay, you're going to dump everything on my device and take it. I think that's one question. But like, okay, I'm sitting in the room and there's somebody flipping through my phone. Are they just like doing a spotlight search for the word Trump and seeing what happened? Like, is that a reasonable guess as to what's going on here?
I don't know if I could speak to that just because I don't know. They could be looking for anything. Like, it's kind of like the inverse of, well, if you have nothing to hide, like, what are you afraid of? It's like, you don't know what's on there. You don't know
Right.
what could be used against you. Like,
Right.
like somebody texting his friend, like, it's so crazy that Trump cut science funding, being a reason to deny them entry from the country is like wild.
Right.
There was a story of a Brown University doctor who had her visa rescinded and got turned away. The CBP agents who were interrogating her say that she had admitted to going to Lebanon, where she is from, to attend the former leader of Hezbollah's funeral, which, like, in most instances, that would get you turned away. But they apparently searched her phone and found photos. They called sympathetic photos and images of the former leader of Hezbollah in her phone's recently deleted folder. So not even like in
Oh,
her
wow.
camera roll, but in the recently deleted folder. And when they asked her, like, why do you have these pictures on your phone and why did you delete them? She was like, oh, my family sends them on WhatsApp. And I deleted them because, like, I don't know, like, they're not me, but like, yeah, I support some of his like religious, like, whatever. She said a lot of stuff. But the point being, like, if you read between the lines there, like, WhatsApp defaults to downloading whatever images people send you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like, my family sends, like, a zillion, like, "Good morning, everyone," things, and I have to delete those on WhatsApp, like, every single day.
Yep.
Um, all of which is to say, you don't know what they're gonna find in your phone, and even, like, trying to delete stuff might not necessarily help you if you don't fully delete it and then they find it in your recently deleted folder.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I was just thinking like we're in the middle of, litigating like the Signal group chat for attack planning and all this stuff. And it's like there's actually a lot of ways that things can happen on your phone without you even necessarily being actively engaged in it. Like I was actually thinking about the WhatsApp one where like mine is all my friends are like degenerate sports gamblers. So there's now my camera roll looks like I'm a degenerate sports gambler, even though it's just all of my degenerate friends sending the bets that they're losing that just dump into my camera roll now. And so I'm like, if you just opened up my phone, you would actually make a bunch of assumptions about me that are wrong. And that
Totally.
is just one specific tiny way that stuff can actually start to happen.
Yeah, your friends are the ones whose parlays are hitting. It's not you, it is your friends.
All my parlays hit, Gabby.
Yeah,
Let's be
that's
clear.
right. That's right. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, I have texts on my phone from, like, 12 years ago. I don't know what I was saying 12 years ago.
Totally.
Like, I don't think about it, and,
Right.
maybe we should be thinking about it, which is concerning. And it applies both to, like, people traveling to the US from outside the country on visas and to US citizens. The difference is just, like, what your rights are, whether you have the ability to say no and what happens if you say no.
Yeah, let's talk about that actually, because I was going to ask you about this because you said if you say yes, these are the two kinds of searches that they can do. Well, can you say no? Who can say no? What happens if you say no?
Technically, anyone can say no, but different things will happen. If you're a US citizen and you say no, they can't deny you entry into the country because you are a US citizen. They might hold you in there for a while. They might try to be like, why are you saying no? But they can't not let you in. They can take your phone and they can use forensics tools to get into your phone if they really want to. This has happened before. There's case law about it. Um, if you're a permanent resident, so you have a green card, it's tricky. Like, you can say no, and in some cases you can't be denied entry into the country, but, like, if you've been out of the country for more than 6 months, then you are basically, like, once again being inspected for entry.
Hmm.
And so saying no could, like, affect your inspection for entry. If you have, like, certain charges on your record, like, that could lead to you also kind of being inspected again. So it's just a little bit trickier than it is for US citizens. If you have a visa and you say no, they can just fully not let you in. They can send you back to wherever you came from and they can deny you entry. So the safer thing to do than saying no is to, travel with your devices really locked down and really clean.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a good segue to like let's get super practical about this here. Uh, the sort of nuclear option here is just like factory reset your phone before you get on the plane. Is that just the idea here? Is that what you should do?
I mean, it's not a bad idea. I would say
Okay.
it's not a bad idea. Like, upload whatever, back it all up, factory reset. If you don't want a factory reset, there are, like, other things that you could do. And I would say this advice applies most to US citizens and permanent residents. If you have a visa, I'm not really sure, like, whether, just like targeted deleting of stuff is gonna help you much. But um if you don't want to factory reset your phone, you should, I mean, actually, everyone should turn off biometric fingerprint, Face ID, turn it off. Turn it
Yeah,
off.
wait, can you explain that to me actually? Because that was one thing in your reporting that I found sort of confusing and surprising, that there is a difference between what they can do with your Face ID or Touch ID and what they can do with your like 6-digit passcode to get into your phone. What is going on there?
Yeah. So this is like a very interesting legal thing. It's the difference between what's known as testimonial and non-testimonial, testimonial and non-testimonial evidence, I believe. And this has mostly been litigated in like local police departments, unlocking people's phones with their fingerprint or their face. But like some courts have ruled that a cop cannot compel you to give them your phone password. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. They cannot ask you or whatever it is. But they can use your finger or your face, because basically testimonial evidence is evidence that compels you to disclose the contents of your mind or your thoughts. So you are, by telling them your password, you are disclosing something that you think. You are being compelled to tell them what you think.
Interesting.
But that doesn't happen when they're just like putting your finger on the thing. This is also like when people go to protest, they're advised to, turn off like biometrics because they can take your phone and just like kind of.
So just like the only analogy I can draw there is like that's the law you make so that they can fingerprint you at the police station, but you still don't have to talk. Like, is there some similarity there?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if like that's like the legal like reason, but that is like an analogy that like makes sense to me.
Okay.
There is so one federal appeals court ruled that non-testimonial evidence, so like a biometric login for your phone, requires no cognitive exertion, placing it firmly in the same category as a blood draw or fingerprint taken at booking. Yeah, so you're totally right.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, so because it doesn't require you to think or express your thoughts against your will, then they're allowed to do it.
Okay. I'm not sure I buy that distinction, but it is an interesting distinction nonetheless. Okay, so the practical advice there is turn off everything but the passcode.
Yeah.
For sure. Turn off all biometric authentication.
And turn off your phone before you cross.
Why?
Because the first time you turn your phone back on, you can't log in with biometrics. So even if you forget to turn off biometrics, like the first time you need to put in your passcode. There are, depending on your device, you can maybe disable biometrics by like pressing the button on the side a couple times. So like, yeah, the main thing is no biometrics, passcode login only. Turn your phone off. So, back up your device, wipe whatever you want to wipe. And again, like people are going to say like, why do I have to wipe my device if I'm not doing anything wrong? It's like, because the scope of what is wrong is expanding and expanding and expanding, even if the law hasn't changed.
Yeah, and truthfully, like the way I would answer that question is like, maybe you don't, but is it worth the risk? Right? Like, even if you don't think there is something in there, like I think about this, like you were saying your text messages from 12 years ago, like this is the reason I like deleted all my tweets at one point. I was just like, I don't know what I was tweeting in 2010, but I absolutely do not want to be held responsible for it, right? Like no one should be held responsible for what they were saying on the internet or in text messages 15 years ago. And in this particular case, you are potentially signing yourself up for, if nothing else, that. And that should scare everyone.
And if they do a forensic search of your phone, they keep the data. Like they keep it. It's theirs. So DHS is building out this massive surveillance database called HART, which stands for the Homeland Advanced Recognition Technology. And it's going to basically replace their current massive database, which is called the Automated Biometric Identification System, or IDENT. And HART is like, their plan is to be able to map people's like non-obvious relationships, like all of these different things about a person's life that again, like go beyond like, who, like, why are you traveling to the US? Where are you coming from? Like, what do you have on you? Like, if you let them, take your phone and take all the contents on your phone and back it up for God knows how long, like, that is data that is being fed into this, like, massive machine. And you don't know how it's going to be weaponized against you or other people. It's kind of like the 23andMe thing, like you get a Christmas present, you spit into a vial, and like suddenly like your 12th cousin is getting arrested for like murder. Maybe, yeah, just weird analogy, I guess, but yeah.
But it is true. And I think that question of not only like how does this affect me, but how does this affect you don't know the sort of second, third, and fourth order effects that this data being out there has. And this is the thing we've learned over and over, right? That like the location data in your phone and the usage data on social networks, like this stuff actually affects a much broader circle of people than just you as it gets out there. And I think it is like that's a useful thing to hold on to, especially in this particular case, I think.
Yeah, there was actually just an instance of a lawyer who was coming back to the U.S. with his family from spring break, U.S. citizen lawyer. The agents at CBP at the airport like tried to look through his phone. He got away with like just a basic search, basically, not a forensic search. They didn't back up his information, but it's like his client's information is on that phone. There was another instance where CBP took an immigration lawyer's phone. And, they did like use the forensic search to like comb through what was on it. And a lot of what was on it was like client information. Um, and so, a lot of us, myself included, use our phones for work, for personal things. And there's not just information about me on my phone. There's information about my friends. There's information about my family. There's information about like my sources. And so I would say like, it's really important for everyone, and it's like especially important for like journalists or lawyers or people who have like sensitive information on their phones.
So given all of that, do you think the selective deletion strategy even makes sense? Like, is there a sort of half measure people can take that will help them, or are the possibilities here just so huge and broad that you kind of might as well just do the nuclear option because it's the safer way to go?
I mean, I would say like, it's still a very small percentage of people who are getting their devices searched. But at the same time, like realistically, how long does it take to back up your data and wipe your phone and then put everything back on your phone? Doesn't take that long. It might be annoying, but it's also annoying to sit in a weird interrogation room for hours and have law enforcement looking through your phone. So I would say I'm not going to tell anybody what they should do, but I think that the wisest course of action is to minimize your risk as much as possible. And maybe that means wiping down your phone entirely. Maybe that means like typing in keywords that you don't want people to see and then deleting whatever fits into those keywords. I think just like the main thing to do is assess your risk as much as possible and try to protect yourself as much as possible. And then also, especially if you are a U.S. citizen, like assert your rights as much as possible as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. And if you delete things, you have to then go to trash and delete them again. Delete permanently is the phrase you want to look for in almost every case, because that's when they're actually deleted. All right, last thing, and then we'll let you go. How do you think about this stuff as it pertains to other devices? I think phones are unique in that they have that sort of massive information that you're talking about. But also, like, I travel with my laptop. Should people think about their laptops the same way they think about their phones? Are all devices kind of looped into this?
I would say all devices are looped into this. I kind of want to do a separate piece on laptops because I also travel with my laptop. I have so much stuff on my laptop. I do not want to put everything like, I don't know, like on an external hard drive or in the cloud and then back on my laptop. Like that frankly sounds like really annoying and time consuming.
Yeah, resetting your laptop is way more annoying than resetting your phone.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about that, to be honest. I will say that my old MacBook does not have biometric login, which is great for me in this particular instance. And yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. And I think one I should probably call up some lawyers about because I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. But in principle, if you're traveling now, you should be applying kind of the same thinking and rigor to all of your devices, not just your smartphone.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
And like smartphones, are maybe easier to lock down, also easier to search, but there's a lot of stuff on my laptop.
Yeah.
A lot of JSTOR articles.
Yeah, like think of the PDFs we both have just like randomly kicking around in our downloads folder. I'm confident some of those would get me in trouble. I don't even know what they are, but I am confident they would get me in trouble.
Oh, for sure. Same. I know what mine are, and they're weird. They're weird even like when I'm showing something, like when I'm sharing my screen, I'm always like, no, guys, you don't understand. It's research. I swear.
Yeah, exactly. There is a part of the challenge here that there is so much kind of mystery in it. And like you mentioned in the piece that you wrote that even what airport you land in could change the way that you go through some of this process because of the different ways that different districts of federal courts have ruled about how these searches can work. So it's like, I think my sense is it is in part designed to be complex and hard to understand, which makes it all the more important that like you as the person going through it understand what is in your rights to do.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I just like having to read about circuit splits to write this piece. I was like, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. What's going on? And I was talking to lawyers, and lawyers are like, yeah, this is really complicated. It's really complicated. It doesn't make any sense. We have begged the Supreme Court to rule so that there's like a single national binding policy, and there isn't one. But at the same time, like, I don't want people to think too much about like the circuit splits in the different jurisdictions, because ultimately like the rulings and the differences are mostly about forensic searches. The legal question hasn't really been raised for basic searches, which means like they can do basic searches basically anywhere. And once again, if you volunteer your phone, if you say no, then there's like a whole situation with like legality and everything. But if you're like, yeah, sure, here's my phone, like, maybe don't do that if you don't have to.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. All right, Gabby, thank you. This was great. Super helpful. And to our caller, thank you for calling in. I hope this helped. Thanks, Gabby.